Hello, so today's video is going to be all about getting back into the gym. I'm going to give you some mistakes that you're going to want to seriously avoid and some general tips for getting back into the gym. I know a lot of us will have taken a significant amount of time out of the gym, not by choice but by force, because gyms have been closed. I know for people in the UK our gyms are currently still closed because Boris thinks it's more important to open the pubs first, which is a whole nother story for another day for a man that claims to want to deal with the obesity problem, but never mind. So hopefully some of you will find these tips useful if you are able to attend the gym again, and for everyone else, my UK people, anyone else who still can't go to the gym, these will be useful in hopefully a few weeks time, I don't know. So the first thing I just want to say is that how you approach getting back into the gym is going to be highly dependent on what you've been doing with your time off the gym. If you have not been training at all, which is completely fine, but if you have taken this time off to just stop training completely, you are going to need to really rethink how you're going to get back into the gym if you were planning on just going straight back into it. Obviously, if you've been doing bodyweight workouts from home, or if you've got equipment from home, your path of getting back into the gym is going to be slightly further along, slightly sped up than someone who hasn't trained at all for the past 3 months or however long we've been in lockdown for now, I don't know. Do approach the gym with a sensible mindset, consider what you've done for the past 3 months and adapt accordingly. I can't go through every single individual person's scenario in this video, but what I will say is if you haven't been doing absolutely nothing, you are gonna want to start off very, very slowly, whereas if you've been training with equipment at home, you may be able to ease yourself into things a little bit quicker. So tip number 1 is do not panic. I've been getting messages for the past 3 months, honestly about 2 weeks into lockdown. I was getting messages from girls saying, oh my god, I've lost all my muscle, my bum looks flat, my legs look flat, I've lost all my muscle. That's not the case. In the space of 2 weeks you're not going to have lost any muscle really, as long as you've still been moving around. Obviously lockdown has gone on for a lot longer than 2 weeks at this point, but if you have been training in some way, something is better than nothing in preserving your muscle. You may have lost some, but you will have lost a lot less if you have actually been doing something compared to people who haven't been training at all. Luckily there is such thing as muscle memory, which in a nutshell is just going to mean the time it takes you to regain any lost muscle is going to be a lot less than the time it took you to build it in the first place. And there have been studies done into this. The study I'm going to talk about is not directly applicable to our situation because, you know, we have been out of the gym a lot longer than 3 weeks now. For most of us it's looking like around 3 months. And in this study, some participants trained continuously throughout. They didn't have any breaks, they've trained continuously, and other participants trained for a certain amount of weeks, then had 3 weeks off, trained again for a certain amount of weeks, 3 weeks off, and they compared the levels of hypertrophy at the end of the study, and the hypertrophy levels were very similar between the two groups, which, like I said, we've been out of the gym for a lot longer than 3 weeks. It's more like 3 months for the most of us, so it's not directly applicable, but it does give us some hope into being able to regain muscle after we've had time off of the gym, muscle memory and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, tip number 1 is just do not panic. Muscle memory is a thing and you are going to regain anything that you've lost a lot quicker than it took you to build it, and the situation is probably not as bad as you think it is. Tip number 2 is very, very simple, very straightforward, and just do not go straight back into what you were doing before. Your body is not going to be used to this. I'm sure you will remember from when you first started training in the gym how sore you got, how long it took you to recover and things like that. So you've taken 3 months out of the gym already. Do you really want to go back into the gym that first week, run yourself into the ground, go straight back into the weights you were using before, give yourself an injury and then potentially have to take 3 more months off the gym? Is that what we want? I don't think it is. You will regain that strength, you will rebuild that muscle that you may have lost with time. Do not rush back into it, because doing that you are putting yourself at a higher risk to injure yourself, and all that's going to do is prolong the process of building your strength back up and rebuilding that muscle that you may or may not have lost. It's definitely going to pay off to be a little bit more patient with yourself when getting back into the gym. Like I've said, the last thing you want is an injury which puts you out for 3 more months. do not rush back into what you were doing before. So with that being said, tip number 3 is to have a structured plan in place which accounts for both the stimulus and recovery. So many of us will be considering what weights we can and can't lift when we get back into the gym, how we're going to go about easing ourselves back into using the weights we were using before, aka the stimulus that we're going to be putting on our muscles. And something that I feel a lot of people may overlook is how much recovery your body is going to need. When you are putting your plan in place, you may want to account for a little bit of extra recovery. Now, I'm sure we all know that your muscles aren't actually being built when you're underneath the bar squatting however many kilograms you're squatting, when you're underneath the bar doing your hip thrust, when you're leg pressing, when you're shoulder pressing, bent over rowing. That is not when your muscles are actually being built. That is not when your muscles are adapting. Your muscles are adapting during the recovery after your sessions, and this is something that is going to be super important when you are getting back into the gym. Sure, we all remember our first week in the gym when we were just sore after every single session because our body was simply just not used to having that stimulus put upon it. And that first week back in the gym after lockdown is probably going to be very similar. You are going to need to consider that your body is probably going to need a little bit more recovery than usual. I would say if you are used to training legs 3 times a week, you may want to knock it down to 2. How much recovery your body is going to need is of course going to depend on the stimulus you're putting on it, but like I said at the start, it's also going to depend on what you've been doing the past 3 months. Have you been training or not? What kind of training have you been doing? Have you had access to some weights? Because obviously if you've been doing something, your body is probably going to adapt a little bit better, recover a little bit quicker compared to someone who's done absolutely nothing for the past 3 months. So do consider that when you are putting a plan in place. Consider the stimulus you're going to be putting on your body, the weights you're going to be using, but also consider how much recovery your body might need. Ways of dealing with this is bringing that RPE right down when you get back into the gym. So your RPE is your perceived rate of exertion on a scale of 0 to 10. Pre-lockdown, you may have been used to using an RPE of around 8 to 10 maybe. Post lockdown, you are going to need to bring that down because your body is not going to be able to adapt. Again, this will depend on what you've been doing for the past 3 months, but I personally would definitely be bringing that RPE down quite a bit and leaving a few more reps in the tank. Another way you can also structure your workouts around the recovery side of things is considering doing exercises which are going to need less recovery. Now, I'm going to talk about glute specific exercises here because that's my jam. So there are exercises which are stretches, and these are exercises which work your glutes in the stretch position. These are things like straight leg deadlifts, squats, lunges, and these are the exercises that take your body the most time to recover from. And if you're programming in a lot of that, your body is going to need a lot of time to recover from them. So I would not avoid those exercises, but definitely peel back on maybe how many times you're including those in your sessions, the kind of weights you're using with those kind of exercises. And I would maybe put more of a focus on your pumpers and activators, so things like hip thrusts, abduction work, cable kickbacks, things that aren't working your glutes in the stretch position but instead are working them in a shortened position. Typically your body is not going to need as long to recover from a set of hip thrusts as it will recovering from a set of heavy squats. Now, I am not saying go back into hip thrusts with all the weights. Again, you are going to want to lower the RPE on those, but definitely do consider your exercise selection when you are structuring your plan of getting back into the gym, and making sure that if you are including those stretches, which I do think you are okay to do, just make sure that you are leaving enough recovery between sessions for your body to adapt to using those under a heavy stimulus again. So going off tips 2 and 3, the very obvious tip for tip number 4 is just to ease yourself slowly back into it. The things you're going to want to consider is going to be your frequency, your intensity and your volume, and you may want to, for the first couple of weeks, just peel back on those and give your body that time to recover, so you are not absolutely hammering yourself and running into the risk of an injury. So if you don't know what intensity is, it's basically what I've spoken about with the RPE, and if you don't know what volume is, that's basically how much volume you are putting into your training for a specific muscle group, how many sets you are doing on that muscle per week, and this may need to drop down a little bit as well. But say you were training legs 3 times a week pre-lockdown, post-lockdown you might want to just start off with maybe 2 times a week with fewer sets and a lower RPE on the exercises that you have selected. To help yourself slowly ease back into it, you can log your lift, see what you're doing per week and try and taper that up slowly. Try and taper up the intensity, the volume, the frequency until you are back to what you were doing before and back into pushing for progressive overload. So I definitely would recommend logging what you are doing each session, the weights you're using, the reps you're using, how many sets you're doing, how those sets feel. Does it feel like you could push for more next week? And also take a note of your recovery. How long is it taking you to recover from your sessions? For example, if it's taken you 4 days to recover from a leg session, you're going to know that the following week you might want to peel back on that intensity and volume to make sure that you can recover properly from your session. And tip number 5 is just throughout the whole process of getting back into the gym, do not be too harsh on yourself. Do not get angry with yourself for not being able to lift the weights that you were lifting before. It will come back to you, and it will come back to you quicker than it took you to build up to those weights. Your muscles will come back to you quicker than it took you to build them in the first place. Do not be too harsh on yourself and look forward to getting back into the gym. Look forward to almost being a newbie again. You're not really going to be a newbie, and it will be quicker than it was the first time round, but look forward to pushing yourself. Look forward to getting back up to that strength and further. You know, it's not the end of the world. A lot worse has happened over the past 3 months than people losing muscle and losing strength. And just think about how lucky you are to be healthy enough to go back into the gym and to still be here and training in the gym. Just put a more positive spin on it and don't be so harsh on yourself. Everything will come back, and I promise you it will come back quicker than it took you to build it in the first place. So I know I said this video was going to be 5 tips, but I'm just going to give you a bonus tip, which is just scheduling time for your workout. And I know that a lot of people, now that they're finally getting back into work, you know, they may have had more time to work out if they've been furloughed or been working from home, because they may have had a more flexible situation and been able to get those workouts in. A lot of us are now heading back to work. A tip for when the gyms do reopen, or if you're even still training from home, is to just schedule in that time like you would schedule in time for anything else. I've got a lot of friends who are nurses and they have different shifts. You know, they don't work 9 to 5 every day. Sometimes they're on mornings, sometimes they're on lates. It changes week to week, and my tip to people who have those kind of jobs is to, 1, not stress yourself out too much, because you're literally saving lives on a daily basis. The training is not the end of the world, but if you do want to get into a schedule with it, I would definitely say to have 2 times. So say you work at 9 to 5, you may work out at 6:30 every day. If you have a job where the hours change, some days you're on mornings, some days you're on nights, XYZ, have 2 times that you work out. Say if you have time to train on a morning, you're not working a certain morning, say, right, if I can train on a morning, I will fit it in at 9 AM. If I can't train on a morning and I want to train at night, I'll fit it in at 6 PM. There are ways around it if you have a job where your shifts are constantly changing. I would say just have a few designated times in your head that are like, right, if I've got time then, that's when I'm going to work out. And yeah, just schedule it in for yourself like you would anything else. At the end of the day, going to the gym, working out from home, it's time for yourself. It's a little date with yourself. You don't have to speak to anyone. You can put your earphones in. It's time for yourself. It's time for you, your health, your fitness, and it's super important. When you are scheduling your workouts in, you're building habits, you're making it part of your routine, and it will just make it a lot easier to stick to. A lot of people think the gym comes down to motivation. It doesn't. It comes down to being in a routine of going. The more you go, the more likely you are to stick to it. No one is motivated 24/7. Hell, no one is even motivated probably like 24/3. I probably have like a couple of days a week where I'm like, yeah, I want to work out. The rest of the time, it's just dedication. I'm in the routine of it. It's a habit. It's what I do. And I enjoy doing it. And just think, you never feel bad after a workout. So that's my little bonus tip, is to schedule in your workouts as a little hour a little time for yourself. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope I haven't rambled too much. I feel like I might have done. If you did find this video useful, then give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram. I have also now made a dedicated coaching page for my online coaching, where I'm going to be sharing all my clients' transformations, which I will leave linked below if you want to check that out as well. But yeah, thank you for watching and good luck getting back into the gyms.